Despite the franchise's current presence at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, we know surprisingly little about the Harry Potter land coming to Epic Universe. Unlike the majority of the park, most of the offerings here are still uncertain, even down to where the land takes place in the Wizarding World. This all boils down to the poor reception of the recent Fantastic Beasts films, which have massively underperformed in the eyes of Warner Brothers. That means that Universal may be circling back on the theme, focusing on more iconic locations from the original series of films. Plans have undergone several sweeping changes, although those changes aren't as apparent as the ones made in the Universal Monsters area. All that is to say that this analysis will be much more speculative than the other lands in the resort. So let's take a closer look at all the possibilities to see which ones may see the light of day. This is the fourth in a 6-part series covering everything you need to know about Epic Universe before it opens in 2025. Feel free to watch these videos individually or in any order, but if you want to catch the next part when it drops, be sure to subscribe, and check out the playlist in the description. Also, all sources used in these videos can be found in the description below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the analysis. First things first, let's talk about where in the Wizarding World this land will take place. It seems fairly certain that this area will be themed to the Ministry of Magic, although it's a bit unclear which one. The French Ministry of Magic, featured in the Fantastic Beasts films, seemed to be the original plan. However, recent construction seems to suggest Universal wants to take a safer approach, instead theming it to the much more iconic British Ministry of Magic. I think this is a good call. Not only is it more recognizable, but it just looks way more interesting in my opinion. The French Ministry of Magic looks a bit boring, while the British Ministry just has a much more interesting architecture. Not to mention, Nocturne Alley, which is also contained indoors, is one of my favorite themed areas, so imagining a full Harry Potter land indoors is incredibly exciting. Despite this change to the interior section of the land, it still seems like the exterior is themed to Paris. This is a little weird, especially with no known explanation why, but it kind of makes sense. With the exterior of Diagon Alley already having a London facade, it's hard to justify doing that again. I'm not sure how they plan to explain this in the parks, but even if they don't, I wouldn't mind too much. In the end, I think this is the best of both worlds. Before moving on to the interior of this land, let's talk more about what to expect from the exterior. I doubt this will be too extravagant of a space, considering you'll still be in the world of Muggles, but I think they could hide some fun stuff. Interactive wand areas are a given, and I think putting them out here rather than the likely more crowded interior would be a smart move. It would also be something new, having magic interact with the non-magical world. You could have this idea bleed into a restaurant as well, with 2 apparently being planned for the outside portion. Maybe there are magical beasts hidden around the place, and guests will be able to spot them while they wait in line to order. Something like this could be a fun idea, although I do find it interesting that all the dining options are outside the Wizarding World itself. We'll have to wait and see if there's any particular reason why. Now let's get into the interesting stuff. This land will be home to several different attractions, although it's unclear how many and what exactly they'll entail. First, let's talk about the ride that's least likely to open with the park. Rumors say this would be a VR attraction, where guests get to take a ride on their very own flying broomsticks. I have some problems with this idea. Like with Universal's more traditional theater-based simulators, virtual reality is something that people can feasibly experience in their own homes. Adding a moving seat to that just won't be enough for most guests. As a supporting attraction, I guess I can see it, but I still don't think it's the greatest fit for this park. Even worse though would be if they move this project to Universal Studios. Recent plans suggest this may be the case, with it acting as an expansion to Diagon Alley, taking the Fear Factor plot of land. This park is already filled to the brim with screen-based simulators, and the last thing they need is another one. In fact, if I had to pick, I'd prefer this ride go in Epic Universe instead. Regardless, it seems that where this ride will go, if anywhere at all, is still uncertain. If it does come to Epic Universe, it won't be my most anticipated attraction by any means, but I don't think it'll be a bad ride either. Not quite what I'd like to see Universal doing right now, but with all the amazing rides using practical effects in this park, I won't mind too much. Next up, let's quickly touch on the rumored stage show we'll be getting next door. I'll be honest and say I don't know nearly enough about Harry Potter to predict what this might entail. Regardless, with the money that Universal typically pours into their Harry Potter attractions, I know this show should be outstanding, especially when looking at their newer shows like the Bourne Stuntacular. It's not exactly my thing, but I'll check it out at least once. Hopefully it'll make up for the cancelled Universal Monster Show, or at least use some of their budget. Last but not least, let's get into the main attraction of this land, which will be, well, we have no idea. There are a number of rumors on what this dark ride will involve, and none are set in stone, so I'll be looking at the 3 most prominent and interesting rumors here. Let's start out with the least likely of the 3. One of the earliest rumors about this attraction was for it to be a trackless dark ride. As of today, Disney is most well known for making these, with Rise of the Resistance being considered by some to be the best dark ride ever created. Trackless technology allows for limitless movement possibilities, and really opens the door for a next level attraction. However, it seems very likely this concept has been scrapped, with it falling to the backside in the rumor mill. The reasoning seems to be that something went awry with Skull Island Reign of Kong at Islands of Adventure, which caused Universal to scrap any future trackless concepts. For example, Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash at Universal Studios Hollywood was also meant to be trackless, but eventually got canned for a more standard setup. I'm hoping that was just due to budget cuts, because otherwise I don't understand what could have happened on Kong to make them not want to try again. Hagrid's went through an immense amount of issues when it opened, yet Universal is still working with Intamin on another multi-launch roller coaster for Epic Universe. There might be something I don't know, or it may just be incredibly high expenses, but even still, it doesn't look like this will be the final product. I'd love for it to happen for a multitude of reasons, but it just doesn't seem like what Universal is going for. Next up is one of the most prominent rumors about this ride. Universal has been exploring a Wizarding World elevator attraction for quite some time now. There's been plenty of patents released about this concept, further solidifying their interest in it. Not to mention, it would differentiate itself from the other Harry Potter rides fairly easily. Despite that, I'm a little wary about how good this ride will be. Based on the current concept and construction, this attraction would only be about 2 stories tall, which takes away from some of the thrill of an elevator-based ride. Without a significant drop, I'm not sure what the point is. The current patents show that the scenes behind the doors can switch out between each stop, but I don't think that alone will be enough to justify this ride. If the ride vehicle moved back and forth as well as up and down like Orlando's Tower of Terror, it could be more enticing. For now, I think I'll have to be sold on this idea. With how great all the Harry Potter attractions have been so far though, I don't think that should be too difficult. Finally, the most recent rumor. The previous 2 concepts involve a fair bit of innovation, but this ride relies on a tried and true system. Universal has already reused the ride system from The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, most prominently in Transformers The Ride 3D. However, the more interesting and more recent case of reusing this ride system would be with Jurassic World Adventure at Universal Studios Beijing. This ride is able to interact with animatronics in a really unique way, which I think could be amazing to see in a Harry Potter attraction. Even innovations from Transformers could help, with the ride being able to traverse 2 separate floors with an elevator lift system. It wouldn't be quite as exciting as a trackless dark ride, but it certainly seems more likely, and much more safe. If this ride mixes practical effects and screens in the same way Jurassic World Adventure does, it could be the best dark ride in the park, or at the very least up there. I'd much prefer this over the elevator concept, even if it is more unique. Overall, I'm interested to see what Universal comes up with for this ride. Maybe it could utilize one of the concepts I talked about, or maybe it'll be something completely different. Considering the amazing work done on the previous Harry Potter rides, I have no doubt whatever they do will be fantastic. Still crossing my fingers for a trackless dark ride. As for the land itself, even in its confused state, I'm still looking forward to it. It may not be my most anticipated land, but Harry Potter is always a franchise that Universal looks to innovate with. Diagon Alley may just be my favorite themed land ever, so if this follows suit, I should at the very least love walking around there. Still, the lineup of attractions makes me hopeful, even if I wish we knew a bit more about them. That's all for part 4. In the next episode, I'll be touching on the How to Train Your Dragon area of the park, which should be pretty exciting. If you don't want to miss it, be sure to subscribe. For now though, thank you so much for the recent support on the channel, and I'll be sure to see you when the next episode drops.